Welcome to the Voices of Search podcast, a member of the I Hear Everything podcast network. Ready to expedite your company's organic growth efforts? Sit back, relax, and get ready for your daily dose of search engine optimization wisdom.
Welcome to this Voices of Search and SEO video live podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Cindy Krum, the CEO of Mobile Moxie. We're going to be diving into the Brighton SEO sessions and sharing some insights from this conference. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. It's so exciting, and I love the show. It's been a great show for me.
It has been a great show. This is your first or second year?
Second year here, but I've also done the show in actual Brighton.
At Brighton itself. So you're very familiar with this conference, the way that it's set up. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the show, give a little bit of context to the conference and how the conference is set up. What makes this a special and exciting environment for the SEO and content marketing community?
Yeah, so what I really have always loved about Brighton is that they're really good at bringing in new speakers, so you get new fresh faces, fresh ideas, not just the same people over and over again. Of course, I'm one of the same people, so they should always invite me. But other than that, I love hearing new ideas and new takes on things and seeing, younger people in the industry, start up and shoot their shot and kind of get on stage. It makes me so happy to see the whole industry evolving and to experience the marketplace of ideas, right? There's not just one right way to do SEO, and everything is changing so fast now. So I think it's just a huge benefit for the industry.
I'm with you. I think one of the things that stands out from being here for the past 2 days is just how many great people and new faces are in the SEO industry, which brings in new energy, new ways of thinking, and it's such a critical need that we have as the industry is evolving, as SEO is starting to change, right? And so some highlights from the show so far, from the conference so far, some of the things that you've seen in terms of sessions that stand out for you.
Yeah, so just lots of new and interesting ideas about AI. Of course, that's something that everyone cares about, and no one really knows which direction things are going to go or how it's going to impact our jobs. We just know it is going to impact our, it's going to impact our lives outside of our jobs as well. So hearing the different takes on that, especially actually from your session earlier today.
Thank you.
I love, panels can be good or bad, and that was an especially good panel because it wasn't everyone just agreeing all the time. Yeah. Because that gets so boring, and why that's not helping me learn or think or evolve, anything. When everyone agrees, there are some things that are simple to agree on, but that means someone should have asked a better question, right?
That's right.
So getting the disagreement, getting the different perspectives was so good. And, Mike was on there, Marco was on there. There was a lot of discussion of schema and structure and how to structure information so that AIs and LLMs can process it and understand it correctly and better and faster.
Yes.
And there was, the idea that the internet is gonna go away. You said that, right? The internet's gone in 3 years. We don't need it anymore because the LLMs will know everything. And there was discussion on that. And that's an interesting, this has occurred to me. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I agree. Well, and I've said—
And this is good. We need debate in our industry, right? We need it, yes.
But for years, if Google couldn't do away with the web, they totally would, right? They would just want everything in a feed,
fed to them, and funneled to people,
Yeah, exactly. Take it in an API and we will represent it however we want in AI, and we'll monetize it and overviews and featured snippets. And people also ask, just feed us your data, right? And that is a possible future where
it is.
Google's been eroding clicks for a long time. And the other thing that came up in your session that I loved, and I can't remember who said it, but the idea— oh, it was Martha. The idea that we've always lived under this kind of unspoken contract with Google, where we provide content and Google provides clicks. And as the idea that the clicks have been eroding for years because Google keeps putting googly stuff to click on into the SERP, and then mysteriously not counting it as a ranking item in Search Console, so we can maintain position 1 forever, but position 1 keeps getting lower and lower and lower.
And less clicks.
And less clicks. And so is Google still, bringing their full game to the bargain that we originally started with, or do we need to re-understand and renegotiate this bargain?
Yeah.
And if we did, how do we do that? What do we change the way we like create content? Do you create more content, less content? And I even had an interesting conversation last night with Michelle Robbins, who's also really big in the AI space. And there are a couple other people in this conversation where it's like, okay, if the contract has changed, or what the clicks that Google's willing to give has gone down, like, and the chance of you ranking, getting clicks, whatever, goes down with it, what's to keep us, doing white hat SEO if there's no penalty for doing or being more aggressive?
And let's talk about white hat.
Is so much lower.
Right.
So let's duplicate content everywhere.
Sure. And a lot of companies have been doing this, right? I mean, we see this with all these companies who are just building up couponing sections and doing all these things. So let's talk about like what is good SEO, because good SEO is changing, and good SEO is right now facing a transition point, in the sense that historically SEOs have been very aware of what Google's guidelines are. But Google's guidelines don't dictate a business strategy. Google's guidelines don't determine a content strategy. Google's guidelines are not a playbook for SEO growth. They're simply directional advice from the monopoly that we're working with. So how do we do white hat SEO, knowing that the guidelines themselves are not the checklist to growth?
So the first thought that came to me when you said, how do we do white hat SEO now, is like, maybe you don't. Like, maybe go a little gray. But, we should still, like, see in your heart, what is white hat to you? The relativist position.
Maybe it's not a hat at all.
Because Google is not the law, right? Google is not the government. Like, it's just a place where you used to be able to get clicks. But if you can't get the clicks anymore, don't follow their rules. Like, get clicks somewhere else and do whatever it takes to be there. And so I think the idea of, like, duplicating content all over the place, because the duplicate content penalty might not matter as much if you weren't ranking anyway. Who cares? There's nothing to lose.
So cloning galore.
Saturate the web with your content and hope that it's training the LLMs that you're the expert on that, because it's so diffused, like, and dispersed, that the LLMs are like, man, this Cindy Krum girl says a lot of stuff on this topic all over the web.
Right.
She must be the expert, right? Like,
but there's other
strategy.
There's other data influencing how rankings and search is evolving. And yes, absolutely, how we manage and scale our content is one of those, which is what we're talking about here in terms of this concept of what is SEO now, white hat SEO. But I gotta believe, and you've shared this, I've seen this in your presentations, there are other ways that Google is making decisions. There are other influences and inferences that Google is leveraging. And I saw your presentation.
Yes.
There's some serious, UFO-like theories on this. But I think it's important for us as SEOs to talk about this. This is where the debate should be, in these places, which is, where are these technologies and capabilities going? And so you shared in a previous presentation how Google's using Chrome data. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, where you're seeing that, what you believe is happening in that zone of Google data, and then relating that to rankings?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing to bring up, because, like, the other thing I was going to say, following up on duplicate content, is, just because it could work, and it could work elsewhere, it doesn't mean it's the right strategy for everyone, and it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And when I say, like, white hat is in your heart, like, it's actually not probably still the right thing to do, because it's ruining the internet. It's gonna ruin the internet. If everyone is producing duplicative AI kind of boring content, we're gonna pollute the water that we're swimming in. But with Chrome and Google being more aggressive, it's another way where we need to reevaluate this contract. So the idea in that talk was that it was a reimagining of what Google has always told us about the launch of mobile-first indexing. So I talk about how Google kind of, in my mind, bungled the launch, because they called it mobile-first indexing, and they nicely gave us a year to prepare for it. And they said that it was about switching from the desktop crawler to the mobile crawler. Well, the truth was, they had already been leaning very heavily on the mobile crawler by that time for a number of years. It might not have been the primary crawler for indexing, but it was, in some cases, already a primary crawler on a lot of sites. And so this was a weird naming thing, so mobile indexing, but it was really mobile crawling, right?
Yeah.
That, at least before they launched it. And then when it turned out that it launched, they started changing how they were talking about it again. And they said, well, it's actually more about rendering JavaScript. It's not really about crawling. we call it indexing, but it's really about rendering, which was a new thing. And now we used to say crawling, indexing, and ranking, and now we have to add something: crawling, rendering, indexing, and ranking. And so this thought was, okay, Google said they're using a second phase of crawling to render and then index. And that's how they're getting the JavaScript. So they do 2 phases now.
Yep.
But they said when a JavaScript rendering resource becomes available, which is kind of mysterious and vague. Like they don't know their own technology, or there's a queue, maybe that's fine. But so the new theory was like, what if? It was kind of a hypothesis. Like let's kind of a thought experiment. Let's game this out. What if the rendering resource that Google is actually using as the rendering resource for the second phase of Chrome is just, they fetch the information from the rendered version of the page after it's actually just been rendered on someone's computer, because why render it yourself when you own Chrome and you know that page has already been rendered recently enough, and you can just have Chrome pre-process pages for indexing whenever a
user is loading it on their Chrome browser. But doesn't that change the contract again? Because now Google is not only have a contract with all website owners, it says, hey, we're going to use your content to create rankings and then thus create money through ads. But they also now have another contract with another free product, by the way, called Google Chrome.
Yeah, it's never free though, right? Is he waving it? It's not actually free, because you're trading your data and you're trading your compute power and the electricity that runs your computer.
Yep,
and
your internet service provider bill, all this stuff.
Paying for Google's indexing via, but it's such a small amount and it's so distributed that we don't notice. I mean, we do notice when Chrome crashes the computer and makes laptops.
Or your entire laptop is burning because you're using Chrome and that's the only thing you're using.
And everyone's like, why is my computer working so hard? Well, maybe this is why. Like, this is the theory. And a lot of other kind of, conspiracy theory-like things do line up to say, like, this is very possible. And Google hasn't always been honest about exactly what they were doing. And
in closing here, as we wrap up this episode, we're here live at the Brighton SEO conference. We're learning a ton. We're looking at theories like this one, right? And we're gathering that as a data point about how search may evolve. We're also looking at concepts and workflows and processes to become better and more effective SEOs. I'm curious to see where you believe these sources of data, whether it be data that Google's using to determine search ranking results, or data that we use as operators of SEO, whether it be what we get out of Google Analytics or we get out of Google Search Console, how those data points need to change, or we need to think about changing them to make a more effective and useful SEO world, an AI-driven world in search.
I mean, I think that we need to get more comfortable with the idea that the data that we're all using and making lots of decisions on is all bad. It's bad data. Google's been mixing up the data that goes into Google Analytics even before they transition.
Sampling,
Sampling, but also not provided. Like, there's so much data that they withhold from us and use privacy as an excuse, or use, other things that are kind of valid as an excuse, but kind of valid, but then kind of not valid, right? We had it for years and no one was hurt, and maybe there are ways that they could still give it to us, but anonymize it better. Like, that's on them. Maybe that's part of the new contract, right? But the other thing is, things like Search Console not counting everything that's in a search result as a ranking position. That's ridiculous. And that's kind of one of the perfect examples of, if you torture the data long enough, it'll say whatever you want, right? Like, you're in position 1, but you're 700 pixels down, because we don't count those. Like, if we adjust what we count as a position, then you're rocking and rolling and you haven't lost any traffic. Don't worry about it.
Correct.
So we need to question the data and how it's collected and what it actually means and what is not in the data, like what's been removed or hidden or not counted because Google didn't want to count it. Someone else didn't want to count it. Like, we need to be on our toes and not just carry Google's water and take what they say without questioning it or without understanding what is their incentive for doing whatever it is they're doing right now. They're not an overly generous company. And they're not doing this for our benefit unless it also benefits them.
Correct. And I want to bring up one last point, because this is important to you, in my opinion. Mobile Moxie is in the tool space. And I think that as an SEO community, we need to start challenging how we're getting our data. And so quickly tell us how Mobile Moxie is challenging the status quo around data, challenging the status quo around how we think about the practicalities of information related to our websites and the audiences we're trying to reach.
Well, so for years, I was very mad, or like I've focused on mobile for a long time, and I was kind of mad or dejected by all of the tools in the SEO space is focusing still more on desktop data when we knew that there was more search volume on mobile. And like, so you're getting bad data just there by trusting the main tools because their desktop data is way better than their mobile data. And the mobile data is so sparse and it's always inaccurate, especially for anything with any kind of local component. And I knew, for years I've been saying like mobile search results are different from desktop search results in a number of ways. They can be affected by your location, by your device, by so many things. And no one was reporting on that. And everyone was just taking like a rank number 5 for this keyword. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like maybe just in that tool on that day, at that location on a desktop, who cares what that is? Right. Like, and so I wanted to get a more holistic view of what is actually showing up on people's mobile devices. And I didn't want to necessarily lean so hard on numbers because I think numbers don't tell the full story because they don't tell you what's above you and below you.
They don't. That's right. The surface changed too much.
Yeah. And so I built these tools to let people test real search results. Google thinks for phones still, like we pass all the same user agent. We're not using APIs. All the main tools that are reporting rankings for SEO are using API.
Yeah, I did.
Google says they intentionally
manipulate. Yep, and scale. Yep.
So I was like, let's show let's let people find the real search results and see exactly on this phone at this like full address, not just a city, not just a postcode. Like if you're standing at this GPS coordinate, what is the search
What's actually
look like when you use this phone and da. So we built those tools out. And I think that, and we allow people to like show things over time and see how it's changed. Where you can say, yeah, we're in position 1, but now we're below these 5 things. We're still position 1, but there's a bunch of, or whatever, to give it more context and meaning. And it's not meant to be like, we don't want to track 1 million keywords. We want to track your big important keywords that are driving lots of clicks, where if you lose a ranking or you lose traffic on this keyword, it's a big, big deal, right? Because, we're not trying to aggregate the entire web of rankings. We're just trying to give you a reality check on,
what your current performance is in a specific location. Yeah. Awesome.
So that's the tools.
Huge thank you to Cindy Krum, CEO of Mobile Moxie. If you'd like to learn more about Cindy, you can find her LinkedIn profile in our show notes. You can also connect with her on mobilemoxie.com.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.